builders carved the tunnel from the two opposite ends and met in the middle. דבר הנקבע. וזה היה דבר הנקבע. בעוד מניפים החוצבים את הגרזן, איש אל רעו, ובעוד 3 אמות להינקב, נשמע כל איש קורא אל רעו, כי היית זידה בצור מימין ומשמאל. וביום הנקבע היכו החוצבים איש לקראת רעו, גרזן על גרזן, והלכו המים מן המוצא אל הבריכה ב200,000 אמה, ומעט אמה היה גובה הצור על ראש החוצבים.
So that you can get a closer look at it. It's a little inscription. It's in Paleo-Hebrew, narrates how 2 crews of workmen tunneled through bedrock to create the tunnel. One crew started at the Gihon Spring outside of the city, and the other crew started inside the city walls, and the 2 crews finally met in the middle.
Hezekiah's tunnel. In 2 Kings, King Hezekiah's story is recorded in a few books of the Bible, 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, and also Isaiah, because Isaiah lived through a few kings from Uzziah to Ahaz, and then finally Hezekiah. So in Isaiah, he speaks of the encounter with Hezekiah, because we know from 2 Kings 18, 19, and 20 that King Sennacherib of Assyria was threatening Hezekiah in Jerusalem. Here, throughout 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles, it records the various kings of Assyria that has come to first attack the northern kingdom, and definitely under Sargon II and Shalmaneser, the northern kingdom was decimated and was taken into exile, and the people of around that area, Babylon and various areas, were removed and then made to live in Samaria and then mix around the people. So the northern kingdom of Israel at Samaria went into exile, and the 10 tribes of Israel disappeared. And this has the next Assyrian king to take the throne was Sennacherib, another very, very powerful. And he came from his capital in Nineveh, which is like modern day Mosul. And here he comes to the coast, down the coast, into somewhere near Jerusalem, called a place called Lachish, and he destroyed Lachish. Lachish is like a city very similar to Jerusalem, huge, very cosmopolitan, and he laid siege to it. And the famous siege of Lachish is told in bas-reliefs in the palace of Nineveh, which when the British came, they excavated it and took everything, and it's now in the British Museum. You can see a whole room full of the bas-relief that showed what happened during the siege of Lachish. And I've seen it, but did not impress me because I did not know the story. This part of the book of the Bibles is still a mystery. I read it for the theology of it, but not the history. And today I'm reading the history with the theology, and it's fascinating. And in 2 Kings, we hear of Hezekiah when after the siege of Lachish, which is a neighboring town to Jerusalem, Sennacherib turned his eyes towards Jerusalem. Initially, Hezekiah paid tribute to Sennacherib. In the end, he said, "No, I'm not going to pay." And Sennacherib went after him, sent his commanders to Jerusalem to talk to Hezekiah. He says, "Surrender, or else I will do to you what I did to Lachish." And Sennacherib prayed, and in 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, we hear of the story of Hezekiah, which I will go through later, but I'm talking about the tunnel. So Sennacherib was afraid, of course, because the power and might of the Assyrian army was tremendous. In fact, the commander of Sennacherib taunted Hezekiah and said, "Hey, if you have 2,000 fighting men, I will give you 2,000 horses for them. Right? It was like, but you don't even have that. That's why you can't take up my offer. Yeah, that's how small an army you are. There's no match against us. Surrender now. And Hezekiah went to consult Isaiah. Isaiah said, the Lord will protect you and will keep you safe. So Hezekiah decided to prepare Jerusalem for the siege. The water supply of Jerusalem was up in the hillside at Gihon Spring. There's a spring that comes out of the ground that feeds, everybody, the inhabitants of Jerusalem and also the surrounding vineyards and olive groves and what have you. And if the siege does happen, you have Sennacherib having plentiful of water, right? So in the Bible it's recorded that Hezekiah said, why should the enemy come and find lots of water? So he dammed the Gihon spring, it just bubbles out from the aquifer in the ground. He dammed it, stopped the water from coming out, and channeled the water instead down an underground tunnel, which he dug into the Gihon, into the pool of Siloam, which is inside the walls. And this tunnel, which can be seen and visited today, is the legacy of Hezekiah. That you see it underground, and it zigzags all the way down, albeit not very far, but with ancient tools. You can see the feet that they went through with pickaxe, knocking at the rock. One group in the Gihon spring working downwards, one group in the pool of Siloam working outwards, and eventually somehow by a miracle they met in the middle. And there's an inscription at the bottom that said how they did it. Two groups with pickaxe in the end meeting in the center. That inscription on the rock is gone. It's been chipped out and it's now in Istanbul. In its place is a modern version to replace it, and it does say the same thing. And we know of this tunnel because it's recorded in the Bible. In 2 Kings 20, verse 20, the rest of the events in Hezekiah's reign, including the extent of his power and how he built a pool and dug a tunnel to bring water into the city. So it's recorded there. And today you see it. And it's like, well, it's just fascinating to see how each time something is dug out from the ground, and you can look in the Bible to see where it says that, and there's no mistaking. It's there. And 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, and even Isaiah is fascinating accounts of the attacks and abuse of the Assyrian kings on the Israelites, and how the northern kingdom went to exile, was decimated, how the Jerusalem, so it survived the Assyrian attack, but not the later Babylonian attacks. Their safety was really because of the rulers' obedience to God. When they're obedient, they're safe. When they're not, they're not safe. And in the case of Hezekiah, he prayed, and God saved the city. And it was a fascinating story because Sennacherib, after the siege of Lachish, received word that he's being attacked at home, and they just packed up and left and went home to Nineveh, forgetting what they threatened Jerusalem. I mean, miracle of miracles. And we have got to read this so we know that God's ways and means is not your ways and means. It's beyond. There's nothing that he's done before. Everything is new. We just need to trust. And with biblical archaeology, we can know that the Bible is trustworthy. It is God's word, and we can stand on it with our whole lives. I hope this series is encouraging you, because it is encouraging me. As I said, the account of King Hezekiah is found in 2 Kings, chapters 18 and 19. And also 2 Chronicles chapter 32, verses 2 to 4 and verse 30. 2 to 4. Here we go. They organized a huge work crew to stop the flow of the springs, cutting off the brook that ran through the fields. And they said, why should the kings of Assyria come here and find plenty of water? Indeed, why? So verse 30, he blocked up the upper spring of Gihon and brought the water down through a tunnel to the west side of the city of David. And so he succeeded in everything he did.